Hey, I'm Susanna Lanier, actor and acting coach for over 25 years.
I'm Jess Greenberg, casting director for over 10 years.
We're here to help you navigate this crazy, creative, and sometimes chaotic journey into the film and television world.
We share our insights as to what works.
And invite some pretty spectacular guests to share more ideas to move you on your journey.
So without further ado, let's get into the show.
Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Carlo Mestroni. He is not only a renowned voice actor and director, he has also appeared in over 50 film and TV projects, working in both English and French. Welcome, Carlo.
Hi, Susanna. Hi, Jess.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing today?
Good.
Good.
Yeah. We're excited to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Good. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. I read in a few places that your mom was really pushing you to practice your storytelling abilities. So I sort of want to know, what does that look like in a kid, in young Carlo? What is this storytelling that you had?
That's an interesting question. My mom did put me into acting when I was probably about 9 years old, and 8 or 9 years old. And she just said that I just love stories and storytelling and changing voices when I was reading and inventing stories. I still do it now with my daughter. Like, I'll say, give me two characters in a place and we'll invent a story, So we invent a story. And she's getting a little old for that now, but yes, when she was younger. So I was always into storytelling, and my mom just saw that and said, you know what, let's try some acting classes. And she brought me to Children's Theatre Montreal. Yeah. And there was Dorothy Davis and Violet Walters who were heading that, and a teacher that I had, Marc de Gagne. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I was one of the few boys in the neighborhood who was doing theater at the time. And she also put me into other arts endeavors, which was great. And my brother was very into sports and I was very into the arts.
Wow.
So that's how it began. And Felicia Schulman, who another great, actress in Montreal, sent me a photo this weekend of a picture of me in a production of Pinocchio when I was 10 years old.
Wow.
That was in a book about Montreal theater. I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
That's right. We have that story from Sid that his first show was Pinocchio.
Yes,
do you want to say that story? He told us that story, but say it again. It's a great story.
Well, I think that you should tell it because Sid's told it to me.
Okay.
But
that's right. You weren't experiencing it. You were actually just playing it.
Yeah.
He the first show he went to was Pinocchio at Place des Arts. Was that it? Place des Arts?
I don't know. Was it Place? It may have been, yeah.
But it was like a big show.
It was a big show, big auditorium.
It wasn't a little thing. And he went there, and it inspired him to start wanting to do direct performance. He's like, I want to do that. I want to make that. And then lo and behold, years later, he finds out that you were Pinocchio.
Yeah, we worked together on a play. And as we were working together on the play, at a certain point, he looked at me and he's like, did you play Pinocchio? And I was like, yeah, that's a deep cut. And he's like, well, that's what got me into this.
Yeah.
So,
crazy.
It's crazy.
I thought it was well, listen, the community in Montreal is so small, but it is very cool that you inspired Sid on his trajectory. So I think it's pretty cool.
And we worked together, 30 years after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were how old again? You said you were 12?
I started at 8, and when I did Pinocchio, I was 10.
Okay,
so it was 1983.
Imagine,
so if you do the math, just turned 50.
Yeah. No, but a 10-year-old inspiring someone to pursue directing,
another kid too, because Sid's the same age about.
Yeah.
So and it's amazing to see. There's certain people from children's theater who are still out there, working either as actors or directors. So it's nice to see, and I've been very fortunate that the people who've been around me, either in Cégep or in those years, for some reason, those people have continued in the profession. Quite a few of them, which is pretty rare.
Yeah.
So you continue on? Is it mainly like theater and drama class while you're a kid, or did you start booking commercials and voice?
I started doing commercials. I started doing a lot of dubbing. When I was around 10, I started dubbing as well. And then when I was 13, I became a teenage boy and let the arts go because it wasn't fitting with my life at that point as a teenage boy who knows too much, right? And so I left the arts for a few years. And then when I got to Cégep, I thought that I was going to go into the sciences. And in my first semester, I took a complementary course in theater. And the teacher who was there, a man named Fred Ward, who was at Dawson at the time, I said, I need to go use the washroom. So I went up to the washroom. And as I came out of the washroom, he was standing in the hallway. He'd left his class. And he says, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? I was like, I don't know, engineer, doctor, not sure. And he goes, no, you're going to be an actor.
Wow.
I was like, okay. He's like, you got to do this. All right, thanks very much. Why don't we get back to class? And sure enough, I switched from science to creative arts, kept going in creative arts, absolutely loved it. Spent all my time in the TV studio at Dawson, taking theater classes as well, dance classes, music, anything I could do in the arts. And went to York Theater after that for a year. Was not enamored with that type of schooling. I liked their first year that touched on everything, which touched on lighting and costume design and performance and history. But it wasn't a great match for me. So I left again and then went back to sciences.
Right.
Worked in healthcare for 10 years, got a degree in biochemistry. And as I was working in a private healthcare company, I just missed auditioning. And a friend of mine, who you all know, Catherine Otsubis,
yes,
who's an agent now, who's at Cameo. The same week that I decided that I wanted to start auditioning again, she was starting as an assistant agent and called me up. She goes, I know this is a, shot in the dark, but maybe would you want to start acting again? So it was really kind of kismet, came back together. And started working together, and we've been.
I had no idea. So
that's cool.
Karine was the one who sort of nudged you to get back into the game.
Well, Catherine called, like I said, the week that I, had the conversation of I want to give this a go again. She called me and said, I'm starting as an assistant agent, so it's just
that's worked. So synchronicity, like putting it out there, and then all of a sudden being open to receive it.
And that was 20
we love
years
that.
Ago.
We love our woo-woo stories.
It really was that kind of moment. Like, sure, strange that you should call.
Yeah. Has the sciences, having a background in sciences, has it helped you as an actor?
I think having a background in anything does help, because it makes for a well-rounded person, and it makes for the ability to step outside of the world of theater sometimes and see things from a different perspective. So I think it's helped me a lot. I definitely have never really used it.
Have you got cast as a doctor, though?
That's what I was going to say. Unless I've been cast as a physician a few times, and that's helped me with the lingo and everything else. So I was totally fine in the lingo. But it's been limited as far as it helping, but it's great to be well-rounded. It's great to have that experience. I feel that it's something that kind of fed any type of research that I do. Having the experience, I think the best experience that I had through all that process, I worked 4 years in an emergency room at the Jewish General as a unit coordinator. And that process of seeing humanity and seeing people who are trying to help people, and also the people who need the help, and the environment of the families and the interactions, I think that was an incredible source of inspiration sometimes with characters, and seeing really how people interact in those life and death situations and harsh situations for individuals.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think that really informed a lot of how I approach scenes and try and delve into the human aspects of things.
And also, I hate to say it, but I also find a work ethic. People who have come from different backgrounds, who decide to go into acting a little later after they have had other professions, they seem to be so focused and organized, and they know what they need to do. And us who started as in acting school, we're all like, la, 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 pick me, but it's not quite as like directed. That's what I really find. And
Well,
does
it's
that
interesting
inform too?
because we have that conversation, Katrina and I, often, and for me, from the beginning, it was clear that this was a business.
Yeah.
This was you have to have goals, you have to have a plan. Sometimes your plan is based on how many productions are going to be casting someone who fits your description for that year. So you are limited in that sense, but you still have to have a plan to move forward. You have to have goals for the year. I've got Excel spreadsheets of different,
Oh, Mike,
like
that's amazing. Share.
yeah. So at the end of each year, I look at what my goal was, and also where I'm having the most success. So
Right.
if I'll look at commercial voice, that'll be one block. Then I'll look at something else that's dubbing, animation. So each one has a category, and then I look at the end of the year, percentage wise, what that was for the year, and then I'll see how much effort I'm putting into specific things. And sometimes, I put lots of effort in one section that's not paying dividends. So I will adjust for the next year. And
yeah, that's amazing. That's what I'm thinking about doing. And Jess and I are going to be creating something like that and trying to market it for people with their agenda. We've been talking about that to get organized, mostly for myself, but then we'll also try to share it with other people. But exactly that, to try to get organized. And this is a business. This is a career that we have more agency than we think. But you do have to kind of think forward. Sometimes you don't. Look, there's been a strike. It's quiet.
Yeah.
I love that. I love your Excel spreadsheet. I love that organizational brain and thinking of it as a business.
It made me rebalance things, because there's so much effort, I think, that all of us put into film and TV, and we are an environment where there's a lot of service productions. We're a service studio for productions that come in, and we put so much effort into those auditions and time. But often, you're going to be shooting for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. So it's not necessarily going to be your main source of revenue for the year.
Right.
But you put so much effort into those auditions, so much time and concern. So just mentally knowing what they're worth to you overall. And yes, potentially it's, for future work, and to raise, again, from the business perspective, to raise your stock in the field.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it allows you to step back and go, oh yeah, okay, so this is important. I'll do the work, but I'm not going to invest so much energy and so much anxiety into them, because the return is not as great as you would think it is compared to other things.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's good advice. And it's funny, Dawn Ford had given me a similar type of advice. I was having a hard time with my acting career, and I was complaining. She's like, well, how's the teaching going? And I'm like, the teaching's going great. She's like, so why don't you put more energy there? I was like, oh, you could do
absolutely. That's it.
And it's kind of exactly what you're saying. Except yours is more sort of your category to actually see, because sometimes we don't really know how much energy or anxiety or effort we're putting in somewhere. And then after, when we can actually see it, we're like, oh, did that make sense? Stuff like that. And so I love those, spreadsheets and writing it
It's
out.
been very helpful. And for everyone, it's different, right? For some people, it might be put that effort into film and TV, put that effort into theater, put that effort wherever. But for me, I found that for myself, video games, voice were the two things that I wanted to focus on, and where I put more of my effort.
Right. And also, Carlo, that's a skill set that you have. That's what also is there. Like some people, they have more of a skill set, let's say for film and TV or theater, and maybe less for voice. Like you definitely have a strong skill set for voice. So that makes sense. But if you like you want to do it, it's busy in the city, but it's just not something that you book all the time, that maybe that's not where you want to necessarily put all your energy.
Exactly.
Right. It's kind of know thyself too.
So what came first? Was it like the planning, or sort of like a few years of doing a lot of things, and then it's like, okay, let's focus here and like let's lay it out in this?
There was an initial plan. My initial plan starting off when I came in, again, I was coming from the business world, if you will, because I was in healthcare, but I was in the
Yeah.
emergency room for 4 years, and then I switched into a private company, a medical devices company, and I was a clinical specialist for them. I go all over the world, and so I saw different aspects of business, and I was like, okay, so I want to make this work. Where can we focus our energy in Montreal if we want to try and make a go at it in as an actor? That is a viable industry, and at that time, it was voice work and
Right.
video games, which
Yeah.
was, pretty much the beginning of video games too, because that was 2003, 2004.
Right.
So I focused my energy on video games and voice and just kept auditioning for everything, going out for everything. I remember biking across the city for the potential to have an audition. Like, it wasn't
Right.
even that it's like, if you get
Guaranteed.
there, maybe they'll be able to see you. And it's like, yep, no problem, let's go. Audition for anything, and just keep chipping away until a place was made, and slowly building up the reputation in that industry. But that was clear for me. It was video games and voice to start off with, and then all the rest was going to be auxiliary to that. And
Okay.
sometimes that the other aspects were what were better. But I mean, the first couple of years are always very difficult. And after I'd say it took about 3-4 years to start being able to have enough information to make decisions
Right.
of where to put energy
Right.
and what to try. Yeah.
I think, listen, I do.
Gathering your research.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So that's what I was like, I didn't want to talk about data and analysis because that's very scientific. It's all the background.
Yeah, but that's what it is. Like, if
It is. It's the
Yeah.
data. It's the analysis of the data and seeing it afterwards. What works for me? What
Yeah.
do I enjoy? Where am I putting a lot of effort and not getting much return? And where am I getting nice return for the effort that I put in?
Yeah.
And what works for me as far as an individual.
Right. And then what works for you and your family. Jess and I
Exactly.
had discussed that too,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
You were
'cause I remember you told me one time that, like, you promised your wife that, like, you're only committing to one theater project a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so interesting, and I always think about artists in a family and like what that looks like. And so if you want to like talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, and that happened because my daughter had just been born, and for some reason that year, I had booked 3 theater projects back to back.
Wow.
And I was, I think, a week and a half into the first of the 3, and came home and said, I am so sorry.
Right.
This is not easy
Yeah.
on anyone. So I've committed to these 3, so I do have to do them, but we've got to figure out how this can work. And we came to the understanding that 1 theater production a year would be okay, particularly when my daughter was younger. But more than that was just too much.
Yeah.
So, if I was lucky enough to get cast in something that year, then great. But I would never try and do multiple projects because it's too time consuming.
Yeah.
Especially with a newborn.
Well, that's it. With a young child, it's very, very difficult. It's
Yeah.
a tough profession because you're rehearsing 6 days a week, and then you're getting into tech weeks, and so you're doing other contracts during the day and going to the theater at night. So it can be very time consuming and demanding, and it puts a lot of onus on your partner.
Yeah.
So we had that conversation, and I was like, "Yep, absolutely, that's a good deal. I'll take it."
Yeah.
So it was one play a year.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. 'Cause it's true. It's true. Now, with the voice directing, do you travel a lot still? Because at one point you were doing a lot of gigs directing in Toronto, right?
Yeah, I was. It was almost commuting to Toronto for a while.
I remember that we
yeah.
had this conversation, so it just brought me being away from the family. So that
So I
made
was
me
doing
think
a lot of
that.
directing where I'd fly in on a flight at 6:30 in the morning, and then would direct for the day, and then come back the same night. And again, that became onerous on the family. And so this was pre-pandemic. We had
Right.
conversations of, with established actors that we know, why don't we start doing remote sessions?
Right.
So, and it was at the time when not many remote sessions were being done necessarily. So we started doing remote sessions, and it worked out really well. So when the pandemic arrived, it wasn't any really new for me.
Right.
We were
Right.
doing
So it
remote
worked out great.
sessions before, so it was working out really well. And it made a difference. Yeah, traveling that much within a period, it was about 2 years where I was doing some traveling to Toronto, to LA, and then doing the work here as well. So it takes a lot. It takes a toll, the traveling.
Now, all the directing. Now, you love directing, right? But do you miss acting? No, you're doing a lot of directing, right? Are you still doing acting and voice acting and all that?
So I would say that directing has never been more than 30% of my year.
Oh, for some reason I thought that was like now your thing.
No.
No, okay.
And that's been a conscious effort. And it's also been something, again, we're talking about priorities and focusing. It was very important to me to make sure that when I am directing with certain companies and projects that we have the conversation of, I'm an actor first. I'm happy to be a director and happy to be on your projects. And I love being a director. I think it's a great role. I love it too, because I know what the actor is going through. I know what's happening on the other side. So the position for me is just almost like an assistant to performance, right? So going in, getting the information from the team and assisting that actor. And I feel like I'm up at the mic with every single actor who's there. And not in the way that I feel some directors are, is like, I feel like I'm there because I could do it better. No, not at all. It's like, I'm here to assist you to get the best performance possible, because I feel I get what you're going through. And sometimes, going through and I was like, okay, you just had a little hesitation. I could hear you thinking about the next line. How did you hear that? It's like, I can tell, like I'm going through the same process that you are as we're going through this. So I do absolutely love it, but it's been very important for me to maintain the acting side and the acting aspect, and to make sure that companies are aware that yes, I'm a director, but I'm also first and foremost an actor.
Yeah.
And that's a continuing process for everyone, because it's easy. The directors get brought onto a project earlier and for a more extended period of time.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's happened for sure that I've missed out on acting gigs because I was directing a project.
Yeah.
So there are times that I've missed out on things, but it's but 30% I think has been my max as far as directing.
Okay.
I trust you on your percentages.
Me too. His data's
I know it's all there. I trust.
I can show you the pie chart. It's right there. Yeah.
I love it. So busy.
So that's so cool.
We're putting a pie chart in our agenda. Okay, pie charts.
Yeah,
we need two, because I've got the bar graphs by year and then the pie chart for the year.
Gosh.
And
you got to send it to us. We're
so I
gonna
compare year over year and also internally throughout the year.
I love it. I love it.
I mean, for those like who are listeners who don't know, like so you're an actor first, but you also direct. You also have done casting before.
Yeah. So throughout the last 20 years, I started off as an actor, and then as I was working and coming into the video game world, I was lucky enough to break into the video game world, and then I was part of the first group of actors to come in on an actor contract doing mocap. And so I developed my relationship with Ubisoft at that time, and after a little while working with them, they had asked me to be a voice director. The first, I would say 2 years that they were asking me, I kept saying, no, not yet. I'm not ready. I want to be ready. I want to feel like I've got the foundation for it. And then after a couple of years, I was like, oh, yeah, I think I can do this now.
Yeah.
So, and I approached a couple of the other established directors and said, what do you think? And they said, yep, I think that's great. Go for it. And so I've been voice directing for games for over 10 years for sure. And then did some performance capture directing and mocap directing during the years as well. And while I was working with them, I was also brought on sometimes as a casting consultant.
Okay.
So there were different teams. They were going through a casting process. And at one point, somebody asked me, hey, would you be interested in working with this team throughout the casting process, going over the scripts, helping choose the actors? You will be voice directing afterwards. So it became part of the team. And I've got to say, I think that was the most rewarding process, because from the beginning to the end, I could see the actors. We could massage the scripts to get the best audition as well, which was super fun to be able to go, oh, I think that we're not hitting those points. If we're trying to get this characteristic for the actor, maybe we can just change this little bit of the script so that we can see that relationship. So small things like that. And so did some casting there in games, and we do casting for voice in games all the time.
Right.
Because sometimes they just call up the directors and say, great, so do you have suggestions?
Yeah.
So we
Right.
send our suggestions, or we go through the casting process. Game On has I've worked for them as well as a casting consultant. And for the last 4 years or so, I've been working as a dubbing director for projects at Diffuse and Cinema.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's getting busier now. I saw Simon Peacock said it's tenfold. It was 10
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. Very
Well, the
exciting.
pandemic kind of pushed things forward a little bit, because I think that, nobody was going into production. So they
Right.
had to take the productions that they did have in foreign languages and dub them, so that they could have more films and more media for people. So that helped the dubbing world in Montreal. And we also have a specialty. Like we
Right.
are built for dubbing because of the
Yeah.
whole French English. We've been dubbing here for ages, and we know how to do this well. So we're specialized in dubbing, and Netflix recognized that.
Oh, yeah. It's great. It's great for a city because there ain't much happening. So at least we get a little bit of a buzz there. We're like, there's
It's I
dubbing.
hear that from everywhere though. Like, I hear
Yeah.
when I go to Toronto, I hear the same thing. And when it seems like every city feels that way. And I think it's true. I think that there is less going on. There are less projects. So yes, it's great to have the dubbing. It's just it's a difficult industry to maneuver just in general, the arts
Mhm.
and acting. So we are lucky to have that in the city. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do I say this? Pivot your goals according to what's happening in the city? Do you know what I mean? Like there's a strike now. There's not going to be as much film and television. Are you going to move more into, or now you're more into dubbing from video games? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I will, in the sense that it frees up availability
Mhm.
from different sectors when other things are happening.
Okay.
So definitely, I will try and adjust and say, okay, well, I'm not going to be doing any American productions for the next little while.
Right.
So yes, we'll take that directing job, or yes, we'll take this
Mhm.
other job that's happening, because there's no chance for those other potential gigs. But there's still times as a director, like recently I was asked to direct a big project for Netflix, and there was a role in it that I felt that I could do. And I've never wanted to put myself in my own projects at
Right.
all. So I spoke with them, and from the beginning, like I said, that conversation of actor first, then director, they said, okay, you're always welcome to audition for the project. But know that, if you get this project, you lose the entirety of the directing. It's like, yep, that's fair.
Right.
So I auditioned for it, didn't get it, and
And you're
and
directing it.
no,
You
I'm
have an
not directing
NDA.
it,
Oh, you're
and I
not.
couldn't
Oh, you
no, because
couldn't.
I made the decision at that point. I'd rather audition for it and
Oh,
Wow.
lose the direction
okay.
than have the guaranteed direction for
Yeah.
2 months.
Right.
Well, I think it's so interesting, and it's a great example because I always say on the podcast, like actors really need to like have a goal and have an intention of like
Yeah.
what they want. And I think this is like an amazing example of like, you're an actor first. So that is
Mm,
always your intention with everything you do. And
yeah,
it becomes clear. And it's also almost like easier to make decisions because that's what's like
yeah,
your northern star, like, you know what I
absolutely.
mean? So it's like it makes decision making a bit easier. It almost gives you a bit more freedom because it's like what your intention is. So
I know what my intention is. I know what my primary goal is. I also know, like, I'm very conscious of the fact that we have a difficult profession. It's tough to make those decisions as to art versus the fact that we need to also make a living, and that it is a
Mhm.
business and everything else. So I'm very conscious of that factor. I came into this wanting to be an artist, but not wanting to be a starving artist.
Mhm.
Right.
So that is my North Star.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If I'm going to be
fair.
honest,
Yeah.
it's to be there to create the best art possible, to have to make a career as an actor, but to do it in a way that it's viable, to do it in a way that I also feel like I'm providing, a home for my family and a good,
Yeah.
comfortable life.
Yeah.
So that's my North Star. So there are
Yeah.
times where I will have to make that decision and go, you know what, I'm going to take this job because it's going to provide for me for the next little while.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And and that's the thing too, is like, I don't think that needs any like justification or like guilt. Like, it's just, that is life. And,
Yeah.
like, you got to
Yeah.
do I don't think we should have starving artists. I think people have to
I
pursue
don't think
different
so
things.
either. And I don't think that it's a necessity. I think that, so there are times where I will do plays for free because I really enjoy the play, but I also know that I've been able to create a certain cushion for a little while doing other work. So there's that balance that always happens.
Yeah.
If someone says, this is the play, and I look at it, I'm like, this is fantastic. I really want to do this.
Yeah.
I have the option to do it.
Right.
And yeah.
Which is beautiful.
Which is amazing, which to
Yeah.
me is amazing. And it's the what I wanted to have was that option, not having to take things, being able to give myself a little bit of leeway so that I can take the opportunities that come.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. It sounds like when you talk about it, Carlo, you're in a position now after you've worked super hard at it for many years where you were able to design a lifestyle that suits you and your family, and things, it sounds, are offered to you. Like, is that how it is? Or are you like going?
No, I mean, yeah,
Oh,
yes and no. Like I'll create that. I've created that environment, but at the same time, I feel like anyone else that it's always a hustle. There's
okay. That's what
there's never been a year where I've been able to say, oh, that was easy. Everything I've set up, it's paid dividends now. So yes, things have paid dividends for sure, but every single year is a hustle. And I think every artist too, at a certain point, you start questioning yourself and you say, am I still relevant?
Right.
Am I still someone that they're going to come see? Are there new people coming in under you who are more relevant right now? There's all those questions happen at any time. When you're younger, you're like, will I make my spot? And then you get to a point and you're like, okay, I've got my spot. I got to keep my spot. And then, you've got your spot, you've had it for a while. It's like, okay, well, I've had my spot for a while. They're going to, so is someone going to push you out of it? So there's always a concern and there's always a hustle and there's always a decision-making process that can be difficult, and you never know whether or not you're making the right decision. So,
right.
So there's never been a time where I've been able to sit back and just go, I've got this. I'm good.
Right. Here it comes.
I've made my decisions and I've happened, it's worked out well. Knock on wood. It's worked out well. But I don't sit on my laurels.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you work equally in both French and English. Is that right?
I would say no. I would say it's probably about 20% in French, 80% in English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had the pleasure of dubbing myself in French in a movie that I shot last year, which was
nice.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Zombie movie coming out next spring.
Oh, Tanisha too. She just told me she's dubbing
exactly.
herself.
Tanisha. Yeah. Tanisha's in it as well.
That's so fun.
And Tanisha also dubbed herself?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Or she is dubbing herself. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
One of the best experiences on set. So much fun.
The zombie movie?
Yeah. You'd think, it was blood all over the place and gore and everything, but everybody was laughing and smiling and just going, oh my God, it's disgusting. More blood. Come on. It's just a fantastic experience. Great team.
Wild. Do you have a preference or like
of English or French?
No, more like mocap to voice to TV, film, theater, or it's like just
commercials.
I really love it all. I will say that my first love now is performance capture, and being in the mocap volume just feels like home.
Nice.
It feels, whenever I go there, and you get to know a lot of the people. It's a very controlled environment. I spent many, many years in Lycra. So it's just, it feels really natural to me. It's such an unnatural world, but it feels very natural to me. So I would say mocap and performance capture, and then voice work. Being in a voice studio for me was something, like I said, I started when I was about 10 doing voice work.
Yeah.
Right.
So coming back to voice work just felt like going back to the womb in a lot of ways, because it's like an isolation chamber, right? You put on your headphones and you're all alone. But I love that feeling. I love that feeling of being in a booth, in a studio, and picking up the there's a granularity to voice work. There's a very specific thing that you have to try and get whenever you're doing it, and you can hear it. There's no artifact. You can't hide it. So in voice work, it's fun to go in and really do a deep dive to try and get that granularity.
Yeah.
Yeah, know how to control your voice and that, like, and to have the ear for it and then be able to do it.
Right. I mean, there's a disconnect too, and directing as well. Sometimes, like if I'm working with another director, I just put myself in their hands completely. I don't
Yeah.
want to be second guessing. But sometimes I'm still listening to myself going, okay, I can change this, I can adjust this, I get what they're saying, but I think I'm going to add this layer as well. Just to pick up there's like minutia in voice work that you have to create lift and energy and environment just with your voice. And there's ways to do that. There's ways to access that by creating the imagery in your mind. And so it's just making those things clear.
Yeah.
So do you have any advice for emerging actors starting out now? What would you say?
I would say, I mean, I'll preface this with the fact that we've been teaching the Actra video game workshops
I'm
for
so happy
many
you're
years.
saying that.
There was nothing like that when I started.
Right.
The reason why, Simon and Randy, Simon Peacock and Randy Dennis, who was at Actra at the time, they approached me and asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, yes, yes, this is what we need. We need this because young actors need to have access to that type of information. Because otherwise you're just learning on the fly and you're making your mistakes as you're going through the process, which makes it take that much longer. So, my advice to any actor is always invest in yourself. Take those workshops, go in, don't assume that you know. And don't think I'll learn on the fly. If you can get a workshop and it might cost you some money, go and take it. And learn. I still go to workshops. I still take workshops. I've had people I've run into students at workshops. It's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I can learn. Same as you. I'm still an actor. I'm still learning. I'm still doing. I'm still in the same process. It doesn't mean you don't attain a peak as an actor. You keep going. You keep evolving.
Yeah.
So I would say invest in yourself. Take those workshops. If there's anything that you want to take as a workshop, take it. Invest in your photos. Invest in your demos. Because as actors, again, we're talking about the business before, and I've had this conversation many times, and on the French side as well, we do not have overhead. We do not have, a rent that we need to pay for a space necessarily, right? We have our homes, of course, but we don't have a boutique on the street. We don't have inventory. So we're able to say, where we need to put our money and our investment is in ourselves.
Yeah.
So keep yourself in shape. Get yourself to any workshop that looks interesting for the work that you want to do. Prepare your demos. Make sure that they're good quality. Get your photos, and put yourself out there.
Right.
If you have all those things in place, there are people now who I know who are great actors, and I've said, I cannot cast you because you do not have a demo.
Right.
Right. Especially in
voice. No, but the work that I do. I'm like, yeah, but if I'm working with a company who's in China, that's in China, and they say, great, can you give me selections? Sure. Here are the demos of the people I would suggest.
Yeah.
If you do not have a demo, I can't suggest you.
Right.
So invest in yourself, put those things in place, make sure that it's accessible, make sure that you can send them off, make sure that they're on a website, so that if anyone needs to get that information, to see your video demo, it's there, and you can keep updating them. So we worry sometimes that we're not putting out the best work. There's that perfectionistic mentality, and I've succumbed to that as well. But you put out what you can at that moment, and when you get new material, you put it in. And as you progress, you put it in, and you keep changing it. So that would be my advice.
That's great. Is keep up with your materials and invest in yourself.
And invest in yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to add on that, and I say it anyways every episode, but it's just that the Actra workshops, like I took the dubbing one, I've taken one with Sid and Danielle Pichot. are so cheap because they are subsidized. They are amazing. I am dying to take the video game one, but it last time I think it was 18 to 35. I wasn't. It was a different age category.
That's changed now within the last, I think, last year, or maybe the last 2 years. They did change that because, again, it is subsidized by Emploi Quebec.
I know,
and it was really, the mandate of it is to make sure that when we're bringing people in, they are people who would be able to fit into the pipeline for the needs of the industry.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So there's some things that feel frustrating in that as far as the decision process, but there's a reason behind it.
Right. Right. Yeah. But yeah. So if people will be listening, those subsidized, keep checking in with ACTRA because you ain't going to get workshops at those prices.
No, I think the dubbing one was $50. Is that right?
$50. I've already gotten 5 contracts from it. Like, it is the best. The teachers, Carlo, you taught one, right? Or
I just taught the one in October.
Amazing. Like the best. And we get to work with directors who will potentially cast us. Like, there's nothing better than that too. Like, I'm an acting teacher. So yes, everybody, I want you to come to my class, but I'm not subsidized and I'm not a director. So I know, great sell, great, but I'm really nice and we do great work.
I know great things of your workshop, Susanna. So
thank you. And I'm not downplaying myself. I think my work is great, but if like you're on a limited budget, man, get those ACTRA ones because they are
absolutely
the best. They're the best, and they're cheap as you cannot get cheaper, and they're just phenomenal.
It's interesting too, and in the past, when I started way back, I would call up in Toronto and say, hey, if I put together a workshop and I got 10 students in Montreal, would you come to Montreal to give a workshop?
Yeah.
And I tried with a few different people, and every single one of them had a little bit of a snicker and said, you won't get 10 people in Montreal. And I was like, what? And they're like, and they said, in Toronto, no problem. We get people who are investing in their careers. But they tried to do workshops in Montreal before and got no traction.
Wow.
And it was surprising to me. And I was like, what is, like, well, I don't know what the difference is, and I can't speak to what the difference is, but I remember at the time hearing that and going, okay, well, I don't know what the difference is, but that's unfortunate. And I think that it needs to change. I think people need to, like I said, invest in themselves and make sure that those workshops are happening in Montreal as well.
Yeah.
Because the better workshops we get here, the better it is for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Yeah.
I don't know if the curriculum in theater school has changed, but I've seen theater kids audition for film and TV, and it is very different. And so if you're graduating from theater school, you need to take on camera workshops.
Yes.
You do.
It's a very different thing.
Yeah, it is.
You get people coming. We've had the experience of people coming out of theater school and then getting to a game audition or to an on-camera audition and going, okay, could you just slate and we'll start the scene? Can I what?
Yeah.
Like, oh. So you've gone through 3 years of school and you don't know what a slate is.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it does. People will notice it, it's kind of like, because they can't be a professional if they don't know what the word slate means. Like, it's just.
Well, that's it. Like, so, I mean, take those on camera, those on camera workshops to make sure that you know that industry and the vernacular for that particular industry as well.
Yeah.
It surprised me. And it's not to disparage any of those schools because they've got great stuff that's going on, but it was just surprising that time. It's like, well, no, they went through a professional program, but they didn't know what slating was. And that was very surprising.
And in a way, it's not their fault, right? It's
not at all.
But that's also why, like, I think there's like, I guess you call it etiquette or like things in every discipline, in theater, in film and TV, in mocap, in voice, like there's different little things that happen, and those workshops teach you those things. And
the base is the same. I mean, whether we're acting for film, TV, theater, or games, the base is the same, but it's learning to act for that specific medium and how it's being captured. And also learning, like I said, the vernacular for that particular field, because it will be different. It might mean the same thing, but they might use 2 different terms for it. Like, in motion capture, we said we're going into the volume, we're not going to the sound stage, but other people might know soundstage, but not volume. So it's the same area. It's just different words.
Yeah. Do you have any book the room style stories, like
Oh,
where
that's
you go in for an audition and you didn't get that particular part, but then, you know, it could be a year later, 10 years later, that director, that producer remembered you and they're like, oh, you'd be great for this. And I remember you in that. And
I'm wondering. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of stories from different different process. In theater, that happens quite a bit, where someone's seen you in a play, so then they bring you in many years later, and they're like, "Yeah, I saw you in this." You're like, "Oh my God, that was 7 years ago." It's like, "Yeah, it was amazing, and this fits. I've been looking for something for you." I do remember many years ago, did a film that came to Montreal. The director really wanted me to do the part. One of the producers wasn't sure. Another producer was sure. So I kept auditioning and I kept auditioning, kept auditioning, and then kept going into the audition room going, why am I going in again? Like, what is the, okay. And kept getting, the director coming over afterwards going, this is yours, man. This is yours. This is great. And then seeing someone in the back of the room going, no,
it's not my guy.
I was like, I don't know what. And so, I mean, I tell the story more just keep doing your best work, because you never know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been easy to get frustrated, because there was, you had the person who was not as enamored, who was not there, texting, doing whatever. And then you had the other person going, see, this is the person. And finally, on one of the last days, I was just like, I think it was the fourth audition, and going in after I did it, I was just like, is there something that you're not getting? Is there something you really want to see? Because I'm not clear. And the director was very, very kind, and he was just like, this is the situation. This is what's going on. I was like, oh, okay, great. And so it just opened up the conversation, and being again from the business side, going, let me answer any concerns you have. Like, what are the concerns that you have? And it's like, great. So let's attack it that way. So let's look at it that way. It's like, my concern is this. I was like, okay, so let's attack that concern. And then that conversation allowed me to understand what the concerns were in the room, and not just, so yes, I went in with my idea of the character, but also just address the room, like really dealing with the room and dealing with like one specific person is closed off, and you go, okay, I wonder why they're closed off. Let's ask that person a question and go, are you getting what you need? Is there anything that you want from this you're not seeing? Because I'm getting the impression there might be something else that you want to see, in a diplomatic way, to open up and I finished it off. The director was laughing as I left, and he was just like, I think you won the room. And sure enough, got the part, filmed, and
well, I think that's history.
It's a good note that, like, sometimes you have to just like humanize the audition process. It's like, okay, it's a collaboration. We're working together here. Like, I'm here, take your time with me, but like, let's talk about it, you know? But I think that also comes with a lot of experience and confidence. Like, I don't think that may not land with like a theater grad, I think that,
it takes courage to say, like, okay, so am I not delivering what you need? What is it that you're looking for? Okay, let's try, because that's hard to do, right? And then if they're like, nah, still not it, going, okay, what else can we do? Like if they're dead set on not wanting you, and you're like, got more up my sleeve, let's try this.
Well, but that was it. For me, at that point, you have nothing to lose too, and there was no animosity. It was just like, I really want to know, like, what do we need? Like, what do you need? Let me help you.
And thank you so much for doing this. It was great talking to you.
My pleasure. Great talking to the two of you as well. We will see each other live soon.
Yeah. Hopefully. So for today's takeaways: 1, arts will always be there for you. 2, having a background in anything helps. 3, every year is a hustle. And 4, treat acting as a business. Focus your energy where you'll get a return. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
If you're enjoying this podcast, we would really appreciate it if you could take a moment to support us.
Leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. You can share this podcast with your friends and colleagues, and follow us on social media at Book the Room Podcast.
We put out episodes weekly, so subscribe to the shows to get notified